FEMA now because they've sat here patiently for an hour and they have answers. Okay, we have John stepped outside, but we've got Dolores here to help us. So the first question, Dolores, is why do the rules in place to determine who qualifies for rent assistance and the amount of the assistance seem to be fluid and inconsistent?
We have policies in place to determine to the application and how to complete the application and complete the application properly. The application has 12 parts to it. If you miss any part of it, items 1 through 6 already pre-filled with your basic information. But when you get to item 7 is your mortgage, the additional rent that you're paying, your utilities that you paid prior to the disaster, your utilities that are required after the disaster, and that's a combination of the utilities that you were paying at your home and at your apartment. And I think a lot of people, they will fill out one side of it, the pre-post disaster, and then you have to attach all of the documents. If you miss any part of the documentation in and bubbling it in, or getting letters, and the letters are going to request additional documentation.
So I'd like to recap what she just said, which is your pre-disaster amounts are your mortgage or mortgages and your utilities on your flooded house. Your post-disaster amounts are the amounts for your flooded house as well as your rental property. You have to include both. And so if your mortgage is $3,000 and your rent is $2,000, you're going to have $3,000 in column A and $5,000 in column B. You need to show that you have an increase in expenses. And if your mortgage is 0, as I would assume some of the folks in the room may have, then you would show 0 in the first column and what your rental cost is in the second column. And that also would include any storage expenses that you would have for a rental unit, but the rental unit would need to have been rented after the hurricane or included in both columns. They told us we can use rental assistance for storage if they're staying upstairs. If they're staying upstairs in their apartment or in their house, and the only thing they have is a pod or a storage unit, that they can use that as rental expense.
No, that goes under moving.
Okay, well that's income based, so don't apply for that unless you don't have any income. That's other needs assistance, right?
Other needs assistance, not for moving and storage. No.
Mic to the mouth.
Oh, I'm sorry. Moving and storage is it's SBA dependent.
Yeah. Okay.
If you were referred to SBA, and you are required to complete the SBA application.
Mm-hmm. But not for rental assistance.
Not for rental.
From here, I've got nothing.
Okay, normally.
Leave me alone in that one. People here had 6 feet of water in their homes. They did not have time to. So I did not have that much water, but I still have.
But normally, what I would suggest, that I normally make, to call the utility company, or you talk about utility. We have the documentation is needed.
All of it, plus tax records. And I know
for rental assistance, we don't need tax records.
It doesn't matter. I'm just telling you, all our documents are gone. You have 6 feet of water in a house. You don't have some of that stuff left over.
And you have to, some documentation has to be recreated.
So you can go print your tax records off of HCAD, and I had to contact StarTech Energy, StarTech Power, whatever it is, to get an old bill for pre-Harvey because you can't print them off the internet. It is very cumbersome. I don't want you to think it isn't. It takes a lot of time. And the rule that we're being told right now is that there is an income threshold that I'm hoping goes away, that your mortgage costs have to exceed, your housing costs have to exceed 30% of your gross income. So if you make, we're going to dumb it down here, $10,000 a month, and your mortgage is the $3,000 and your rent is $2,000, you should be able to qualify if you've got a 50% housing cost. But we've seen people get denied for that, which may be one of the next questions that's coming up. And what would be your recommendation to people that are getting denied?
Case by case basis.
Okay, I could have stayed at a hotel for 4 months. You would not have asked me what my income was or means. We go into an apartment and we ask when we're denied. What's fair about that? What your recommendation should be is go.
I don't have an answer to that. I'd like to look at your case individually.
There was no problem.
What'd
They
you
said
say,
A plus. She said you
A
have
plus.
everything here, but you're denied on. I was told that was not a.
That's the rule of thumb they're using right now. We're hoping that that goes away. That's my objective.
Let me ask a question about mortgage. We chose to pay off our mortgage so we wouldn't have Wells Fargo involved in our insurance. How do I handle that? I show zero on my mortgage, but that's not the reality.
I can answer that question. Put that as your annual mortgage. And you can put the frequency as annual, and then they'll divide it by 12 as your expense.
Do you agree? That's how you handle that kind of payoff?
I'm not certain about that.
That's what I would do.
I know that's what Jennifer would do, but how do you, there are so many situations which are specific like that. Are you going to meet with 10,000 of us to go over our individual situations?
No, I'm not going to meet with 10,000 of you to go over your individual situation. But I would recommend that on a case-by-case basis, we look at some of these rental assistance issues.
Okay, well, I'd like mine put in that case.
Okay, and I'd like to recommend that you contact our office and let us help you.
Or contact me and I can help you too. Okay, so we've talked about this means tested. That's our third question. We understand, once again, it's 30%. They want your expense to be greater than 30% of your gross monthly income. So you can do the math there and decide whether or not it's worth applying right now. When that changes, which I'm going to continue to fight to have that change, I'll let y'all know, and then you can apply.
How can we help you fight that?
What?
How can we help you fight that?
We can all complain and send notes to the governor, to the president, to our congressmen and our senators, but really in the big scheme of it right now, I feel very, very comfortable with where we've made inroads within top attorneys up in the government that are interpreting the law and feeling pretty good about where this is going to end up. I can't make you any promises, but I'm doing the best I can. I have a 5 or 10 page document on why they shouldn't be denying people rental assistance. And so if you want that, you can email me at mcknight.cpa@outlook.com and I will send that to you. So you can use it as a basis of your appeal or argument. So the next question is, there's no single list detailing all of the documentation required to request continued rental assistance. People are submitting upwards of 60 pages of documents, none of which was asked for on the original reapplication. Then there's that 60-day wait for approval or denial of continued rental assistance. So I think what they're saying here is that some people are sending in just oodles and oodles of documents, and then they're having to wait 60 days before they hear the inquiry for additional information. Agreed. Should they be waiting that long?
We do try to put that rental assistance.
Stop talking. Well, many people in this room have paid 4 or 5 months of rent and have only gotten the initial rental assistance. That is paid at the HUD FMR rate. And you can Google that for 2018 to see what the rates are so that you know what you're going to get if you don't already know that. But they're behind is what I'm telling you. And at some point, people's resources are going to be non-existent. And so people people that didn't have flood insurance at all are moving back into their houses and living in an environment that for them may not be safe, but it's the only thing they can do financially because they're not getting the help they need.
The only thing that I can say is that in the processing and procedures, they do try to process, and they try to process at least 3 months in advance. Give the monies to you in advance so that you have it in advance once you get started.
Well, we're not seeing that here. I think, has anybody gotten 3 months in advance? 6 months in advance, anything? So I think every single person in the room has only gotten paid in arrears.
Okay, so what I'd like to do is let everybody
That'd be great. You can't ask for anything more than that, so let's be nice to her, because she's taken all of our names and our FEMA numbers, then she's gonna help us. Randy?
Hello?
Yeah, so Brandy's saying she's been pending 58 days. And so we're gonna put your name on the list and she's gonna check it out for us. Brad?
Hello, everyone. I've got to run. Let's remember Hurricane Sandy. FEMA is a completely and consistent corrupt organization on all fronts. I mean, I don't want to hear about policy. And I appreciate my friend Trey's thoughtful questions tonight. And let's remember his neighbor. His name's Derek. He worked for Harris County Flood Control. My neighbor over here said that they didn't show up tonight because they're defendants in litigation. So it's time to pile on the flood control district. Derek was communicating with John Lender via email Sunday night. And as you know, Derek moved into our neighborhood because he would never, ever, ever flood. And he lived next door to the Bushes, and he flooded during Harvey. That email will come out in discovery, that thread of emails, but Linder said, don't worry, Derek, you're not going to flood, you're not going to flood. Then Sunday around 10 p.m. he said, sorry, dude. And the next thing you knew, you had 6 feet of water in his house. So this is going to be a fun litigation opportunity. We're all patriots here, but we need to call our government out for what it is, and we're all moving forward. But I'm disgusted and appalled at some of the comments from our federal government representatives. And by the way, Councilman Travis and Representative Murphy, I liked your candor tonight, and let's continue to move forward, and everyone have a Merry Christmas.
Okay, the next question is back to rental assistance, which is in order to secure temporary housing in a very complex, competitive market. Neighbors chose to rent were required to sign extended leases, and this was under the assumption FEMA would help pay for their rental expense. So I think there's not really a question here as much as these survivors feel misled in that there was nowhere that you could Google or look up or have any document that said that there was a slim chance or even a very high likelihood that they would not be eligible for rental assistance. And they're upset about it because now they're locked into leases that cost them sometimes in excess of $36,000 for the year. And this isn't an expense that they shouldn't have to pay at all, much less one that they didn't think they would at least get reimbursed for. So people are upset. So anything you can do to help will be much appreciated. And then the next thing says, when FEMA denies continued assistance inexplicably, will they help residents get out of their long-term lease? Yeah, I knew the answer to that. No, the answer's no. But do reach out because there may be some things on your boxes that weren't checked yet that haven't been turned in, and I'm happy to help you figure that out.
Jennifer,
Yes.
also just point out for everybody who's sitting up there, Google how much rental assistance works. Look at any of the fact sheets. It all says it's not meaningless. It took Jennifer weeks to find any sort of information that it was being denied on an income basis at all. That's just not right. A private citizen shouldn't take information out spending, I don't know how many hours Jennifer spent trying to figure out what to do on it when nothing else, whatever y'all can do to help her.
I think maybe this is an issue for Ken Higginbotham, since he's external affairs. Maybe he should take back to his organization that we're looking for some more transparency in what the rules are, because we're pretty good at following the rules and turning in paperwork and getting our ducks in a row. This is an educated group of people here, and if you tell us to dot an I with a bubble, we'll do that. But if you tell us to cross a T with a smiley face, we'll do that too. We'll do whatever it takes to get the rental assistance trickling down to these people. So transparency would be helpful, and what we've had to do to gather the information that we have all indicates that rental assistance should not be means tested, and we are hoping that FEMA turns that around and that you never say 30% is a number again. Okay, and your FEMA rates are just in the HUD FMR rate, sorry if you wanted to know. For a studio apartment, 772, one bedroom, 871, two bedroom, 1,066, three bedroom, 1,456, four bedroom, 1,844, and if you are lucky enough to have as many children as I do in a 5-bedroom house, it's 2,120. Anything larger than that, your rooms had to be occupied before the storm. So if there's only 2 of you living in the house, even if you were in a 6-bedroom house, you're not going to get 6-bedroom rent. The maximum you could possibly get is 2-bedroom, because 2 people can't occupy more than 2 bedrooms. You would agree with that, Dolores? Michael.
Sorry. Under the occupied bedrooms, all of the bedrooms have to be occupied, but if you have 5 bedrooms, then, and it's only 2 of you, a husband and wife, then you're only going to qualify for 1 bedroom.
Unless you don't sleep in the same room.
Yeah, and then you got to provide,
Then you can get 2.
and then you got to provide documentation.
Okay, thank you for that humor for today. Okay, so now we're to FEMA uncovered out-of-pocket expenses. And is the federal government treating residents with flood insurance differently than those without? Our homeowners insurance does not cover loss of use, yet those of us who lost a great deal are forced to pay out of pocket. I understand this question. Oh yeah, they don't cover outside. No. Anything that's not under the roof of your house or in your attached garage is not covered under an FIP. Yes, on October 25th, I believe, FEMA issued some guidance on what you're supposed to do with your backer board, also known as gypsum, also known as gym board. Okay. And so it tells you what they're willing to pay for, and when you're appealing to your insurance company for not having paid you the policy maximum, you should include a copy of the FEMA October 25th memo that specifically states that they're supposed to pay for you to take your siding or your brick off and replace that gypsum board with the new stuff. October 25th. You can Google Katrina to Harvey Hurricane Survival Guide, and it's on there too, on Facebook. So I think the other thing to take away from this question about loss of use is that FEMA requires that you turn in your loss of use letter from your insurer. So I was prudent and got both my homeowner's denial of ALE letter as well as my flood insurance. And I know you're like, why would you need a flood insurance loss of use letter? Well, FEMA requires it. So if you can go to your flood insurer, they do have loss of use ALE denial letters. ALE stands for assisted living expenses. And that could be one of the caveats under financial ability, is that FEMA is going to assume that you have benefits from your homeowners or your flood policy if you don't prove to them otherwise that you don't.
Okay, you have covered perils, and the homeowners, under the homeowners insurance, you have up to a year to provide FEMA your insurance settlement information or denial. Only if flooding was your only cause of damage, it's already known that you do not have additional living expense or loss of use. But if you have one shingle blown off or any kind of anything that's covered under your homeowner's insurance, then you have to provide a denial from your homeowner's insurance in order to get the rental assistance.
Financial ability denial letter is one of those caveats that you want to check the box on. So get the denial letter in order to obtain the rental assistance or keep the rental assistance.
Can I ask a kind of overarching question over all this, the reservoirs worked on? And yes, we need to figure out how everybody gets paid for all of the damage. When you look at what's really caused all this, why are we all here? Why are we in this predicament? Why are we trying to make bigger drainage and make all the water go away faster? Because of the rampant, out of control overdevelopment in this area. And as long as that keeps happening, we're going to have to keep getting bigger bayous and bigger reservoirs and everything bigger. It's, developers that are getting, laws made in their favor so that they don't have to put in so much stormwater drainage. And then they kind of skirt the law and do things that they shouldn't do. We had a developer plow down the wetlands that were behind our house that we thought were protected wetlands, and then they just came down with bulldozers and said, what wetlands? There were no wetlands here. Maybe there's things being done, but I've never heard of anything being done. And I know we've got some politicians here. Is there hopefully something in the works?
Yeah, thank you for your help. No, I'll just mention, and I know we've talked about flood control and perhaps kind of a negative light, but one thing that has occurred that I think is quite good at the county level, that speaks directly to what you're talking about, is new regulations for building. And I think that's one of the things that's really going to help people to say you have to be not just out of the 100-year floodplain, they're trying to say you've got to be out of the 500-year floodplain. So new structures that are permitted after January will fall into these guidelines. So for those of you who have concerns about where are relative to floodplains, you might want to expedite the permitting process. That's a concern to you. The state doesn't have a role in regulating land use and development, that kind of things. The county does, and Harris County has just this week put forth some pretty strong new rules that should keep those newer structures from having problems. It doesn't mitigate necessarily the existing, right? I know that they talked about that.
The stormwater.
Right. There's some articles talking about how that the building's elevated so it doesn't flood, but it becomes an island like our houses were, fortunately. It becomes an island, and so people can't rescue you, you can't get in there, and so it sort of skirts one problem but creates another. But at least the building's not flooding.
It's not that it just creates an island and those people can't get out.
You have to actually provide for detention, what water will go. That's actually under the books.
And that's what I would say, if that's what's been on the books, what I heard in this application of mitigation for water that's not being absorbed because every time they build a new building, they aren't working.
A lot of what you're experiencing may be there's a grandfather clause. With that said, and we can copy this, there's a lot of properties out there that have been around for a lot longer than the 30 years. I don't know if it's 30 years or 34, I don't know.
Like everywhere else.
And you say the wetlands behind you, where do you live?
I could add just to say, we're looking at like a regional flood control district. And part of what happens is that, one neighborhood or one municipality or even one county, look at Fort Bend and Harris County, they have different sets of rules and regulations about how they proceeded. Like I know many of you know on the Fort Bend side, they did have a warning on at least the early deeds about the possibility of the reservoirs being in the floodplains or the flood pool, whatever it may be, where Harris County didn't have that requirement. So, and again, we try to leave a lot of this to local control. We hear that a lot. Everybody wants local control, and when we try to mess with it, we get in trouble at the state level. But I believe that we do have to look at this in a regional. way, because as we grow, like you're describing, in just this just uncontrolled way, all our neighborhoods and our communities tend to meld together, and we are causing damage to each other without communicating sometimes. So I do think that there will be a movement to have a regional flood control district. I imagine we will get pushback from the locals if we start talking about that at the state level. I'm not sure about that, but that's something that we can do, work together for long-term planning. And I'll say this, and it may not be popular, but what happened in Harvey, just, it's horrific. And someone called y'all a sacrificial lamb. Well, in a way you have been. But I think we've learned from this. Sometimes it takes the worst nightmare to learn from it. So hopefully moving forward, we can take, this horrible nightmare and try to use it to make some good policies moving forward. That's what I had to offer on that answer.
I don't know. There's 3 brand new apartment buildings, 2 right on Highway 6, 1 right off of Memorial, that's right up to the bottom.
Yeah, and I don't know, I can't speak to those, so I'm not sure exactly why they were permitted, but I would say this, it's a general answer, and I don't want to sit there and try to defend something I can't defend this, but I am a big advocate of property rights. I don't know if, when we do give out permits, we look to see whether that will increase. I don't think Public Works is corrupt or all this, they do a good job. And so when they're going out there, they're looking at it, they're doing the studies, and they're figuring out whether or not this will add with the runoff. I don't know exactly about these projects, because I'm like, assume that they are on private property, like they're going to be able to do that. There's a lot of properties in that dam, you go to Highway 6, all that stuff there. I don't believe they're with the dam. The dam's got its own issue. It hasn't been, maybe a problem for the people who live there. And if you don't like the permitting, we can talk about that. We can talk about what new regulations. There will be ordinances coming out based upon this. You are going to see changes. I mean, tomorrow, I'll be attending. They're going to promulgate some new rules and regulations. So what you've seen before may not be what you see tomorrow. For questions I answer.
Repeat the question.
I want to have her repeat the question.
Here.
Sure.
She wanted to know if his statement was related to the articles that were in the Chronicle on the 6th and the 7th of December about taking property, buying up properties.
And I will first of all confess I had not read those articles because I was good. Because I was out of town on a trade mission with the mayor, so I apologize. I do know there's some articles being written about the golf course. So you're talking about those articles in 5th and 6th.
Is there a council group, whether they are going to allow subdivisions?
Well, let me
So
ask
that could change.
you, how many people here live within the 100-year flood plain? Okay, well, you are, as of tomorrow, letters are going out. I just got briefed on this today. They're called substantial damage letters. It's required by FEMA. It's required by FEMA, and let me do this. If you're within the 100-year floodplain and you have also your repair to your house, 50% or more of what the value of your house is before the storm, we're going to, FEMA requires that you're going to raise it up above the flood level line. So,
Okay, came out and indicated, as the lady indicated, that it would be coming out, which would restrict building blocks. And if you're able to even build, what can y'all tell us about that?
well, the county is actually promulgating their own rules. The city's doing their rules, and we're having a meeting tomorrow. We have a meeting
So
with
the
the
rule, who do you like to address? The question is, well, you're in Harris County,
You're within the city, so you're in the city,
so the city overrides Harris County.
So, yes, within the city. You only have to run the county when you get outside the city limits, so we're all within the city limits. So the city is actually, we're trying to basically keep it very similar to what Harris County is doing. We don't always do that. We've got the same people who are speaking to both groups, and we have the same general consensus. So there's not a whole lot of difference going to happen between the county and the city. It speaks for itself, and the county speaks for itself. Steve Costello is got this effect. Randy, you're on that committee, aren't you? So we've got a member on that committee. Tomorrow's meeting, I've got all scheduled for tomorrow.
That's right. Is that, are you talking about Odom's committee? I'm not familiar.
Yeah, that's the one.
That's the recovery committee that's being directed by the mayor's office.
You're not on that one? I thought you were.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and answer the next question because I can, which is, how do we access federal disaster relief monies that have been earmarked for each family impacted by the flooding? There's a couple different answers to that. Number one is you're waiting on the community development block grants, and that is what Culberson's video was talking about. He's trying to get funding earmarked for everyone to be able to get a grant. So if your losses related to the disaster are in excess of your insurance proceeds or your FEMA grants, then, meaning your repair grant, then you would be eligible for a community development block grant. In Katrina, those were almost 2 years from the day of the disaster, so I'd like to set expectations that it's not going to be here tomorrow. The money can get allocated and approved next week without any trouble, but it's still going to take them a while to administer the program and get the money in your hands. And I can assure you I was one of the first people to get the money after Katrina, and that was June 2007 when Katrina hit, August 29, 2005. So almost 2 years. And then the other question is, go to Greg Travis's website and you can see the list of who has gotten the federal funds, the allocations to your local charities. MAM is one that serves our area. Jewish Community Center serves our area, and there are a number of other ones. And you need to look at what the purpose of them are. Some of them are for elderly, some of them are for homeless, some of them are for indigent, some of them are for people that don't have English as their first language. So please check Greg Travis's website because it's very helpful.
Excuse me, I have a question.
Wait, I'm sorry, before we go to any more questions, we've got some representatives that haven't had any questions asked of them, and I would like to get that done before 8:30, and then we'll continue with questions, because I don't want to keep them any longer than, you keep the mic, you're next. You can keep the mic, you're next, but I'm going to go ahead and ask NFIP.